All right, welcome back. Let's get more on our breaking news story. Passengers using the Gautrain have been stuck on the train due to a power failure. A shuttle is now transporting passengers between Marlboro and Sandton, as well as Marlboro and OR Tambo International Airport. Our reporter Manqoba Mchunu is following the story for us as well. Manqoba, of course, we do know that we spoke to a passenger underground saying that they were walking to another train or shuttle. Do we know if everyone's been removed from underground, or is that still happening?
Well, John, at this particular point, the reports that we're hearing, of course, is that that train has been cleared so far. But we are here at the Marlboro, not the Marlboro, but the Midrand Gautrain station, which was also one of the train stations that were affected here. We do understand that the trains from Midrand to Park Station couldn't travel, and many of the passengers, of course, finding themselves in a very peculiar position of having to try and either find their own transport or wait for bus services to shuttle them between the two stations, or the three stations that is Marlboro as well as Sandton station. In fact, we spoke just a short while ago to one of the commuters who was traveling from Sandton, who told us that she was among those who had been stranded at Sandton for over an hour, and that's when they were told by the Gautrain management that they will be using buses, that they will be taking buses in order for them to get to this particular point. But we do understand that the trains, however, running from Marlboro up until Pretoria had not been affected by this. And just speaking to the lady, she says that the explanation that they'd received from one of the officials at the Sandton Gautrain station was that this was due to load shedding. But of course, at this particular point, we cannot confirm that. In fact, Gautrain has issued a statement alluding this particular problem to power cuts. It was not very clear as to whether this was in any way related to load shedding. But also, just speaking to one of the officials here at this particular station, we did pose a question as to what was wrong, and she also alluded to the fact that this may have been due to load shedding. But of course, that has not been confirmed at this particular point. But we did see quite a number of buses here, unprecedented number of buses coming in and leaving this particular station. And that speaks to the fact that many of the passengers between these two stations were being shuttled through these buses. But we do understand at this particular point, Shahan, that the issue has now been resolved. In fact, we're told that the trains are now back to their normal schedule and that the situation has now been resolved.
Yeah, it's interesting whether it's a power failure or due to load shedding. Of course, the Gautrain should have had a backup system, right, for this not to have happened, especially underground. I know that the statement they issued is very short, but is there any way from how we've covered the Gautrain and how it operates, if you can tell us if there are backup systems for electricity?
Well, Charlotte, at this particular point, we haven't been able to reach any of the Gautrain officials. But of course, one would imagine that in a system like this, there should have been a backup system. And why that backup system had failed, I think that's a question that Gautrain will have to perhaps address. But you can think of the economic impact this has had, and the impact on all those commuters, Shahan. Especially, I think the biggest casualties will be those who are traveling, who are going to the airport. You know that many of them are under pressure to get on time to the airport. So this means that they've had to have additional traveling time to their schedule, and we don't know what impact that may have had on them. But certainly many frustrated commuters, many of them telling us that they're quite aggrieved by the fact that there was no backup system or a backup plan that was in place for Gautrain, and are quite concerned that going forward, is this going to happen more often, given that load shedding is still going to continue, given that there are many issues when it comes to the issue of power supply in the country. So many of them expressing their concern about this particular situation. But of course, I think Gautrain will have to provide more clarity as to exactly what the backup plan is, and why, if at all there is a backup plan, it was not in place.
Yeah, all right, we're going to leave it right there. Interesting, I am reading previously that the Gautrain was affected by load shedding, and it did stop services in 2019 due to load shedding. So the question really has to go to Gautrain about why they haven't managed this properly, especially since we're a country that's going through load shedding for years.